So I've been working on this Amiga 1200 build for probably about 3 years now. I purchased the motherboard from Amiga Kit. It was a remanufactured motherboard, and it was very reasonable at the time. I think it was like $150 or $200, which is very, very good for getting some of these old Amiga parts. They're just really difficult to come by now. I also purchased a RetroTink 2X SCART adapter, which allows me to plug the Amiga RGB into the RetroTink, and then from the RetroTink, it's a HDMI signal that goes to the TV or monitor. So I wanted that compatibility, so that's why I got the RetroTink. And that was pretty reasonable. I think that was like $70, and it's external, and I can put it on one Amiga or another Amiga. I also purchased a Gotek drive with this. This one has the spindly selector button thing. I kind of wish I would have just gone with the standard Gotek because the two buttons that are on there suffice. The OLD screen is super nice though because you can see what drive you're selecting or what disk you're selecting. With this Amiga, I also purchased the Amiga 1200 or the A1200 8 megabyte memory expansion. It's got the real-time clock, and on the other side, it has the math coprocessor, which would normally fit on the Amiga 1200 here, and this could be soldered up for a math coprocessor, but you're going to be limited to, I believe, 14 megahertz, whereas the math coprocessor on this is something like 40 or 50 megahertz. I don't remember exactly what that was. I also wanted to get a keyboard for this. I'm thinking about a custom case. I need a keyboard, and I wanted to get an Amiga 1200 keyboard, but those are very difficult to come by now, especially in good condition. There's been a few new keyboard Kickstarter type things on the horizon, but they never really materialized, or at least I haven't seen them. So I ended up buying this little adapter here, which allows me to plug in a PS2 keyboard. Now I did test this with this IBM Clicky Key Model M keyboard, and it worked fine. It's a super nice keyboard, but it just wasn't what I wanted because the keyboard just doesn't match the Amiga at all in what I want to do with it. So I ended up purchasing another keyboard, and this one I got on Amazon, and it was only like $16. Problem is, after shipping, it come up to around $24. So it's just it is a WYSE branded rubber dome keyboard. So it's nothing special, but it is black. So that's kind of a theme I was going with. And yeah, it was cheap. So why don't we go ahead and open this up and take a look at what I've got. So I've been looking for a PS2 compatible keyboard for a while now. It's really hard to find them because PS2 is kind of, a thing of the past. So I was looking on Amazon and I ran across this WYSE branded keyboard. It's interesting because it has a USB and a PS2 keyboard port. And I wanted the PS2 for my classic computers, and more specifically my Amiga 1200 motherboard that has a chip that allows you to plug PS2 keyboards into it. So why don't we go ahead and get this thing open and see what we've got. So this is a new keyboard. The WYSE technology used to make thin clients they used to make terminals for connecting to mainframes, and then Dell ended up absorbing them sometime in the 2000s, I believe, and just kind of used the name for thin clients. So this is probably nothing more than just a Dell keyboard that's been rebranded. So we've got lots of interesting packaging going here. This one here, this says WYSE Technology UK Limited. So interesting. Let's take a look at the keyboard itself. So it's got a decent weight to it. It's not super heavy, but it's not too bad. Keyboard seems to be pretty stable. It doesn't flex. That's really nice. And the keys, they feel good. So it's a rubber dome keyboard, nothing all that special. A couple of nice things, it is black, so that's kind of nice, especially in a PS2 format. Now, what is interesting is it has a USB cable that's built into it. You can see it right there. And then on the side, they added a PS2 connector right there. So that'll allow me to take a PS2 cable such as this. It's basically like an extension cable, I guess, and be able to plug it in to the keyboard. Now, it's kind of odd because now I've got two cables coming out of the keyboard. The one on the right side over here, and then this one coming out of the back. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this long run. If another thing I've noticed is that coming out of the side, it's much more likely to get knocked off. So that's going to be a problem. I might be able to get a USB to PS2 connector converter, and that would probably work fine as well. The reason I wanted to go with this keyboard and not just get an adapter for a USB keyboard is because not all keyboards, USB keyboards that are compatible with the PS2 format, where this one, having the PS2 built in, it should be fine. I really shouldn't be as excited about this keyboard as I am, but the reason I was really excited about getting it is for $20, it's pretty nice, and you can buy these on Amazon, although the shipping brings it up to about $25. And then this is what I would expect for most cheap keyboards. This thing is just plain nasty. It's so thin, everything's so thin, there's no metal backing in it, and it's flexy. Like I can actually just flex the whole keyboard, where this one's a little bit more durable. The key travel on this AST, it's okay. It's your typical cheap rubber dome keyboard. This one is kind of like the deluxe rubber dome keyboard. So let's take a look at the inside of this WYSE Technology keyboard. Here you can see we've got a mylar layer, and this has traces running throughout it, which connect up to the circuit board. And on the circuit board, you'll see we've got an S-video connector. Now at the top of the keyboard, this is the rubber domes. And each of those domes has a small conductive piece of material inside there. And I can fold this material back, and it's very soft. It's like a silicone. And I can push down on the domes, and they actually just kind of collapse down. And then if I push up on the keys, you can see how the key pushes down on the dome, which then makes contact with the mylar layer underneath. So this hot mess is an Amiga computer, believe it or not. I've got all kinds of things running around and being plugged in. Now, when I first turned on this Amiga 1200, I couldn't get it to display to my Sony television. And I was running it through the RetroTink SCART, 2X SCART, and I'm not getting a picture. Well, it turns out that the television, it doesn't apparently, it's not compatible with the PAL output, which is 578 lines or something like that, but it does interpolate the 480 lines. So 480 lines looks great. And then I ran into another problem. The WYSE keyboard just doesn't work at all. So I connected it with the PS2 connector, and that is not happy. So then I tried connecting it with the USB using one of these little adapters to a PS2. Now, I wasn't sure if this was going to work or not because it actually just has a picture of a mouse on there, no keyboard. But I was able to plug that in. I don't know if I can do it now with one hand. And it didn't work either. And with that, it wouldn't work. So I plugged in my IBM Model M keyboard, and it's plugged in directly into the PS2 connection. And you can see I've got the activity lights, I've got the number lock and the scroll lock key on. And if I push the button here, it is telling the Amiga firmware to toggle between NTSC and PAL. So I do get the NTSC picture, but unfortunately on this television, I'm not getting the PAL signal. So then I went ahead and pulled out my other keyboard, and let me show you what that looks like. So then I plugged in my cheapy AST keyboard using the USB to PS2 converter, and it works fine as well. So I can push the space bar and toggle between NTSC and PAL. So no problems there. So unfortunately, my nice new WYSE keyboard. Does not work with this Amiga, but it's not a complete loss because I think this WYSE keyboard goes great with my box computer. I just love the way the 4x3-inch Dell monitor looks with these Altec Lansing speakers, and the WYSE keyboard is quite nice. It's not, like I said, it's not a high quality mechanical keyboard, but it actually feels pretty good when you're typing it. Although I do find that the enter key is a little stiff, but other than that, it's not bad. Do I think it's worth the price that I paid, the $17 plus $6 shipping? Yeah, I think it was definitely worth that. Did it work for what I intended initially, the Amiga 1200? Unfortunately not, but I'm happy. I've got a nice keyboard to go with my beautiful box workstation. So that wraps it up for this video. I hope you enjoyed this content. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe. That helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate it. I will have a lot more videos coming out. I will eventually do something with this Amiga 1200, I promise. And yeah, until the next time, take care of yourself and goodbye.